Hey friends, welcome to the Empowered Homes Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to grow strong families by connecting church and home. And today's episode is our last of our marriage series on pursuing your spouse. And I'm joined by my beautiful, talented, and amazing, awesome wife, Jennifer.
I'm back.
You're back. So I'm forcing you to do another one.
Yeah,
so
basically.
Welcome back. Glad you're doing another episode. We're going to wrap up our kind of 3-part series we've been doing on sneaky threats that cause conflict in your marriage. But I've been super excited about the episodes we've had with different couples. We had Brad and Liz talking about pursuing your spouse. We had Chris and Kelly Kincaid talking about adjustments and like how you communicate together on making adjustments when big changes happen in your life. You know, they're been married for 7 years, but they've got kids and a newborn and all these things, and it feels like that was forever ago for us.
Yeah.
But it was a fun episode. And then Todd and Lori, I was going to combine their names to one, but Todd and Lori Pendergrass, we were with them talking about honesty, but then they even led a date night.
Our date night.
At church.
It was so good.
On that. What was your favorite part of their talk at date night?
At date night, I think that they said that, I guess they made the point of how important it is to, like, catch up with each other and just, pause and say, hey, like, I've been thinking about this. Like, what do you know about this? Or like, how can we respond to this, like, together?
Yeah.
Or did you ever blah, blah, blah? Because they had both been married before. And I think even if, a husband and wife haven't been married before, they might have been in relationships before or just been completely single before. And, honesty is hard.
Yeah, it's hard. So we talked through honesty with them on the last episode. It's in really breaking down being honest in our heart. And we look at H-E-A-R-T, breaking down the acrostic of heart and what those letters represent. It's really fun. So if you're listening going, hey, I want to know about all those other episodes, we'll have all that on the description. But this is our last of the Pursuing Your Spouse series. And, we started it off. Now we're finishing it. And it's super fun. So we every couple that we had on, we asked them the 3 same questions. And so just for fun, I have some more questions just to break the ice for us and for you to throw me under the bus if you need to. So 2 questions. Okay. All right. What are you most excited about in our relationship during this season that we're in? So we'll explain our season. We've got all of our kids in elementary school.
Yeah, they were all at the same school for 1 year.
1 year.
So we're 10, 9, and 6, 5th, 3rd, and kinder. I guess, I don't know if it necessarily has to do with our relationship or as far as, like, our family. Like, I feel like we can do more things. We can, like, trust our kids with more things. You and I can leave the house for 30 minutes and leave them at home. Or, like, we back up to a park. We can go, like, send somebody out to the park while we make dinner. Or I think just the freedom that we're coming into as far as, like, our kids growing, and you and I can have adult conversations with them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the respect that we give them and then the respect that they give us in return. I think it's good for all of us. We're in a sweet season.
Yeah. And we're pre-teenage years, which, terrifies me just because I worked with teenagers for 15 years. But I'm excited about watching our kids continue to grow. But for our marriage, I really am excited about seeing our kids have more responsibility, especially Charlie, who's about to be in middle school, of us like, hey, if we want to, me and you can go for a walk.
Yeah.
And leave them at home. They're okay.
Leave him in charge.
You're in charge. If we want to, me and you can go grab a quick bite with another couple or whatever. That's been kind of a sweet season right now. It's pretty fun. So this is a fun question just to be thinking if you're listening going, all right, what season am I in? Kind of evaluate your kids, evaluate just what life looks like right now. And like, what's your favorite part about this season? Because a lot of times we can, what's my least favorite part?
Yeah.
I could probably name 10 things right now of just stuff.
But we're not in diapers. We're not potty training. We're not bottle feeding. Like we've moved on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So there's lots of great things, but just this question was fun. Just thinking about like, as crazy as our season is, we got some good things, especially for our marriage. So,
and I think with our kids having more responsibilities like within themselves to take care of, that it frees up time for me and you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, especially like in the mornings and in the evenings when things are super crazy.
Yeah. It's a good question. One more question.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. This one has to do with sex.
Oh, gosh.
So, no, I'm totally kidding. You're so red right now. Why are you red?
Stop.
I'm kidding. We're not going to talk about sex. The reality is that's funny to me because I told you the first time we were going to do a podcast, I was like, we're just going to talk about, you were like, no, I'm not doing any of that stuff. So.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sweaty.
You're sweating right now? How's your palms?
There's wet.
You mean to touch your palms? Oh my gosh. Nothing.
Keep going.
I'm just messing with you.
Okay, keep going.
I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff. All right. What ways can I honor you more?
Oh.
I know. It's a deep one. What ways can I honor you more?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I feel like as far as our family and like what we've built, I feel like you do an incredible job of showing the kids that I come before them and you make me a priority like over them. You're not like throwing them to the side.
Yeah.
But you definitely make it very clear that I'm first.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, you can always like, throw in a load of laundry or
there it is. There it is.
Or wipe down some countertops or sweep. But
I try to be the dish fairy at night.
I know, and I appreciate the dish fairy.
And I clean the kitchen.
But I don't know. I mean, it's just like the little around the house things. But as far as like honoring me, I think you're a great husband. And I think you do a great job.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks. We'll just end the podcast there. I'm doing awesome. It's fantastic.
You do a good job, but you could do more laundry.
Yeah, more laundry. Okay. One way you can honor me more. This is a super tough question because I feel like you do a good job too.
Look at us.
I know. But if I'm being honest, which is what Todd and Lori said about being honest.
I know. Please be honest.
No, there's nothing really I can say. I think our schedules in our life and everything's crazy. I used to joke with you about feeding the kids before I got home, and I was like, I felt left out or whatever. And I don't know. You do a better job of making sure that the kids see us as a priority. You see that the kids see that you see me as a priority, not them, which I know is hard because you're with them way more than I am. But, I don't know. Maybe the little things better, but nothing too crazy.
Like, laundry.
Laundry. You do more laundry for me.
I can do more laundry.
Yeah. No, you can't. Here's one way, practical way. Make sure there's half and half in the fridge.
I bought you half and half yesterday. I bought you the half gallon.
But do you know how long I was out of half and half?
No.
No, I'm kidding. It was like a day. But anyways, no, that's a hard question. But if you're listening and you're like, man, if you want to get into some deep stuff of like, hey, what's exciting about our current season? And then like ask your spouse, how can I honor you more? You're going to be ready for, I didn't know what you were going to say because you didn't know these questions.
No, I didn't.
So, but it's a good way for you to kind of gauge the temperature. Because if it brings up conflict and you say, oh, let me tell you, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, man, we got to work on some stuff. But that's something we do often. It's like, are we good?
Yeah.
Like we have those check-ins where we're just hanging out. It's like, are we good? There's distance or whatever. So anyways, those are some questions. You want to jump into today's topic?
Sure.
All right, Jen. So this is the third part of our sneaky threats that cause conflict in our marriage. Do you recall our first threat that we talked about on the podcast?
Yes.
What was it?
What was it? That was a long time ago. And I know we just talked about them, but you're putting me on the spot. Say it.
Resentful?
Yes, resentful support.
What does that mean?
It means I am excited for you and I'm going to support you, especially like if you get a promotion at work and now you're traveling more. Congratulations, like we've got more money, but I'm going to be really upset with you that you're gone all the time.
Yeah.
So I support you and your aspirations and your dreams, but I'm going to be really mad.
Yeah. And I know you have something that's super important that you've been wanting to do for a long time. And I'm like, I know she wants to do it, but we're going to make it happen. But secretly, it disrupts everything in my life. And
makes you work harder.
I actually have to add more things and adjust schedules. And it causes conflict because I have resentment. And so we talked in that episode on how we push back is going after our assumptions of what we're assuming, because 99% of the time we jump to assumptions that are not true because we're human. You know, your spouse may get a promotion and have to travel more, and maybe your assumption is they only want to do that so they're away from home more, and that assumption could be so false. But if you don't ever talk about those assumptions, then you're just going to have resentment. And so going after that. The second sneaky threat that we talked about was Jenn. Assume
letdown.
Yeah. Assume letdown. What's assume letdown?
I'm going to ask you to do this for me, or like you. I'm going to give you a grocery list, but I know you're not going to buy the things that I would like on the grocery list, or like I'm going to ask you to do something.
Yeah.
And I know that you're either not going to do it or you're not going to do it like to the best of your ability. You're just going to do it halfway.
Yeah. So there's multiple reasons why we do this. One is we know it's the right thing to do to ask, but we still know that person's going to let us down. Or we ask with such high expectations that it's never going to happen.
They're never going to be met.
That all of my frustration, even though has nothing to do with what I asked you to do, but I'm going to explode on you because you failed to do the dishes or whatever I asked you to do. Whereas the conflict or issue could be something totally different. It could be something that has to do with finances or something that has to do with whatever. But I'm going to ask you this, assuming you're going to let me down so that I can fight with you, which is terrible.
Yeah.
The other side of assume letdown that is manipulative that we talked about in that episode was, if you ask me to do something, I'm going to do such a bad job because I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That
you never ask me again.
Yeah. You're never going to ask me again. Like, I'm going to mess up this whole process so bad that I don't ever have to do it again because you're never going to ask me again. So that's the manipulation side of it. So assume letdown, super sneaky because we tend to not know that we're doing it, or we know we're doing it to cause conflict. And so that episode, we break that down and we talk about the tools for working through that assume letdown. But today, the last sneaky threat on our list of things that can cause conflict in your marriage is, and it's probably the biggest one, and it's one of the biggest ones that is unresolved because we don't really talk about it very often, and we don't really know how to talk about it in healthy ways. So the sneaky threat is our family of origin.
Yeah.
So the families that we came from, the families that we're a part of, blending families, all of these things can be a sneaky threat to our marriage in so many variables. And we could probably spend 100 episodes talking about all the different ways that our family of origin, the baggage that we bring into our marriage and all of that stuff. But today we're going to just look at two reasons this becomes a sneaky threat. But just reading from one of my friends, he wrote about family of origin. He says, individuals typically develop a sense of self in the context of their family of origin. Children who are shown love and kept safe may develop strong sense of self, but if love and safety are frequently unavailable, a child's sense of self may be weak or damaged. Most families will have some negative aspects as well as positive ones, and any and all family traits may have an effect on a person's adult life and their marriage. So our family of origin, if the listener's going, oh man, my husband, let me tell you, or my wife, let me tell you. So let's just for a few moments talk about our family of origin before we go into kind of these two topics. So Jen,
okay,
what about your family of origin?
So my parents, I guess in April, will be married for 40 years.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Awesome. They live in the same house still that they bought when they first got married. I have a sister that's 18 months younger than me, and we lived in like very, I don't know, Christian. I was homeschooled. Like I had set boundaries, and everything was kind of predictable as far as the day-to-day. I knew that my dad was going to go to work, my mom was going to stay home with me and my sister, and we'd do school, and we didn't have everything that we wanted, but we had everything that we needed. We took trips. It was very, like, I graduated high school, and I went to college, and
yeah, it was great.
Very, Christian textbook kind of life.
Lots of positive.
Yeah.
Some negative.
Some negative. It wasn't, it wasn't
the beavers.
Sunshine and rainbows all the time, but.
Yeah, but very good.
Yeah.
So my upbringing is the complete opposite. I grew up in dysfunction. Parents divorced when I was 2, moving back and forth. Dad had multiple wives, not at the same time. Mom had multiple husbands, not at the same time. So married and had step siblings in there. It was just all these blended, like a lot of mess and dysfunction growing up. No structural stability like you did. And, there's addiction. There's all kinds of other things that, my family of origin going into it. And so on paper, we should not be compatible.
No. We should not even be friends.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking the other day. Like we put on our letter jackets when we moved a couple years ago, like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
We found them while we were moving. We put them on, and then we looked at each other, going, "We would not have hung out in high school. We were two totally different people." But through Jesus,
yes,
and I'm so glad that we're married. But our family of origin has brought in conflict into our own our marriage.
Yeah.
But if we don't deal with it or don't talk about it or discuss it, then it continues to fester. That's why it's so sneaky, is because no one ever tells you. Like you're in premarital counseling, no one's like, all right, let's talk through it. Some do. It's getting better. I think, counseling and all that stuff is getting better. And we're going to talk about a tool that can help couples at the end. But we didn't talk about any of this stuff. Like when I went and talked to your dad and your mom, we had dinner, and I was going to ask them for their blessing for me to marry you. I told them at the table, like, I have never seen marriage work. Like I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do my best. And that's what I've tried to do. But I've still brought in lots of stuff with our family of origin. So looking at two big things that are sneaky as we go through this, but really the first one is personal impact. So there's personal impact when it comes to your family of origin, specifically your parents and other family members and stuff. And so that personal impact looks, there's three different, there's more, but there's three different types of impact that I think are key. One, you have received impact. And so received impact looks like something that happened in your family that you receive and then you now do as an adult or as a parent or as a spouse. Give me an example of a received impact.
With our kids?
Yeah, with our kids. That's fine.
So growing up every morning, can I talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So growing up every morning, my mom would turn the light on the stairs and yell up the stairs, sometimes kindly, sometimes, "Good morning! It's time to get up!" But she would wait for me and my sister at the bottom of the stairs, and she'd give us hugs and rub our back and say good morning. And that lasted from whenever I was little bitty to high school. And I do that every morning with our kids. I'm not always at the bottom of the stairs, but I welcome them down. I hug them. I hold them. I, whisper in their ears, good morning. Did you have a good sleep? I want them to know that they're loved and that they're starting off the day on a positive note, because that's what my mom did for me.
Yeah. So you receive that.
Yeah.
And now
I want my kids to have
you're
that.
doing the same thing. And so in our marriage, there's several things that you can receive that you saw happen, and that impact of those things, now you're doing that. But that could be good and bad. So there can be received things growing up that, like, I saw how my dad talked to my mom. And I can receive that and catch myself talking to you that way. And I'm like, oh, that's probably not the best thing to do. But if I understand that that's the source of it, then I can make adjustments to stop doing those things. So we receive things. Another impact is recalled impact. You ever say anything to your spouse that you're like,
That's my mom.
Where did that come from? I would never say that to you. Like, you sound like your mom. Like, that's the Ray Romano show. What was that?
Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah, you get slapped real fast. It's like, you sound just like your mom. But that's recalled impact. Like, we do that all the time in marriage, where we'll say something to our spouse, we'll do something to our spouse, and it's like, oh, I don't know where that came from. And so if we don't talk about it, that'll be a sneaky threat that can just cause all kinds of issues and conflict, and it happens all the time. And then the last one is reactive impact. So maybe you saw something that your parents did or didn't do, or your family of origin, something happened, and you made a vow to go, I'm not going to be like that. And so an easy one for marriage for me was just watching, and not to throw my dad under the bus, like, he did the best he could, but watching my dad and how he treated women, like, I made a vow early on. I was like, I don't think that's right. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. Although I failed in high school, I caught myself doing the same thing. It was received, but I reacted to the opposite of it. And like, I never want to do these things to my future spouse. And so you have received, reactive, which is the opposite, doing the opposite, and then recalled, which just happens because in our subconscious, it just comes out. We say things. And so the personal impact that we bring in from our family of origin has so many ways to cause conflict in our marriage. The second one. So the first one is personal impact. The second way our family of origin can be a sneaky threat is the variables associated with our family of origin. What I mean by variables, it's a little different. It's uncontrolled variables, things that we couldn't control growing up. You know, the impact, we can't really control a lot of those, but we can identify the uncontrolled variables are stuff that happens, such as abuse, trauma, neglect, or over-enmeshment or overbearingness. Those things we couldn't control often will affect our marriage. And so what I mean by that, so let's say you have trauma example. Your parents divorced when they were growing up. Mine were 2. I was 2 when my parents divorced. So I don't have a whole lot, but I know working with, teenagers who go through divorce and all that stuff, like, it's so fresh. A lot of times you try to overcompensate out of fear for your spouse. Like, I'm going to get married, and my spouse, because my parents divorced, I'm going to do everything I can, whether it's healthy or unhealthy.
Yeah, I was going to say you can be a doormat.
Yeah, to just be a doormat, and healthy or unhealthy, to make sure that my marriage does not end in divorce. And so that variable, you didn't ask for your parents to get divorced. Right. You didn't ask like that. You can't control that. So that variable has caused a little bit of trauma or caused some abuse for you. And because of that, now you are being a spouse that's so over worried about that it affects everything you do. The flip side of that, say same scenario, divorced when you're a teenager, you see just the brokenness of what that situation looks like. Instead of overcompensating, then you have a fear of trust where I'm constantly assuming my husband or my wife's cheating on me or looking elsewhere, or I'm always in their phone making sure, and that's just going to breed more conflict if it's not addressed. But the source is your parents. Unless you deal with that.
Yeah.
Another one, a lot of times we can weaponize our abuse or our trauma in manipulation. And we see this. I counsel with men all the time, and I see this all the time. Here's a snapshot of manipulation that can happen based off your family of origin and stuff that you've gone through. Again, unknown variables or the variables that you have no control over that have caused this for you to do this and act this way. So manipulation. So I'm going to say these things to you. I'm going to belittle. I'm going to be harsh. I'm going to push. And then the second that you push back, Jen, what am I going to do?
You're going to blame it on me.
I'm going to be the victim.
Yes.
I'm going to be the victim because if I have to blame someone else for the trauma, for the issue. But I'm going to initially continue to push. And any pushback, I'm the victim. You're the bad person.
Right.
So no matter what, good or bad. So that level of the source of that 9 times out of 10 comes from a trauma that happened or a variable that happened within your family of origin that you had no control over, but you haven't dealt with it. And we see that in marriages often, all the time. It's a sad thing. But how do we fight back? Some people need professional help. Yeah. You need to see some marriage. If it's that bad to where the manipulation and the gaslighting and all of those things come in, you got to talk to someone.
And that's okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. Yeah, 100%. We've seen people. We've gone to counseling. We've been able to go through and just have checkups.
Yes.
It's okay. But your family of origin, if it's not dealt with, and these uncontrolled variables can wreak havoc on our marriage over time, but it doesn't just happen. That's why it's so sneaky. So sneaky. The other thing, uncontrolled variables is, I love your parents, but you can't control how overbearing or underbearing they are.
Right.
My parents are both deceased, so I guess you can control. They're not non-existent. But for the normal couple, I can't control, my in-laws.
Right.
Whether or not they're overbearing or underbearing, we can set up boundaries, and that's the key to it. But this can cause a lot of conflict that I see often. So if you have someone that's overbearing, it doesn't have to be in-laws. It could be aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever, the family of origin. But they can get all up in your business. You can have family members that know too much and it causes conflict. And you may think, well, that's not that big a deal. It's my cousin. We're super close. We're like sisters or whatever. But it can cause conflict because it's
telling my business.
Don't put my business on the streets. To your cousin who's going to go run her mouth and do all this stuff. That's not a true story, by the way.
No.
Listening. But they can get in your business. Another one that we see in couples with the overbearing families is this increase in number of financial dependency. And so grown adults who still depend on their family of origin financially. Yeah. But the manipulation of that sometimes is those family of origin do that so that they can continue having a say and control over their life. Yeah. That can be a sneaky mess if we don't go over that. Another one, family of origin with overbearing or underbearing. I've seen husbands run to their mom before they run to their spouse. Right? Yeah. I'm sure you've seen women.
Wives. Yeah. Yeah, the wife run to her dad before she goes to her husband.
Yeah. How many times have you, I'm not going to ask that question, but how many times have you seen women have something broken and the first person they call is who?
My dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You called your dad when we were dating.
Oh my gosh.
Do we tell that story real quick? On your windshield wiper?
My windshield wiper. No, it was my headlight fluid.
Oh, headlight fluid.
Yeah. I didn't have any oil in my car because my dad's awesome and took care of everything for me.
Yeah.
So then my car was making noises and I obviously needed some oil. Yeah. And I said, I met this boy named Bobby.
And I'm talking to him on the phone and he's like, yeah, go ahead and get an oil change. And then I hand the phone back to you and it's make sure you
you change your headlight fluid. They just need to fill it up. It'll make it brighter.
And I said, what is he talking about? Anyways, sidebar. But the reality is, if our family of origin's overbearing, that could be a real issue. I see, and the sad part, I see that more in men who run to their mom, or are so enmeshed with their mom, so close to their mom that it causes conflict. Last one, overbearing parents or families members can be super critical of not only just like the home, but like how you're raising your kids and how you're in parenting. And it's like, hey, let me tell you, you should probably do it this way or whatever.
Or have you tried?
Yeah, have you tried this? Which a lot of times it's good meaning, whatever. But if, for example, like if my mom was trying to tell me how to do things, and then I'm telling you, hey, my mom thinks we should do that, how would you respond?
Stop it.
How would you respond, Jen?
Say, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to try it.
Yeah. Because it's conflict. Like it's sneaky how all those things, but how many couples. And
it could work. Whatever she said could work. But I'm probably not going to be okay with it.
Yeah. But how many couples, that's the thing. Okay. So we understand the personal impact, but these uncontrollable variables that happen with our family of origin, because we love our family, but we can't control how overbearing or underbearing or uninvolved they are. How many couples do we know struggle with all this?
Yeah, a lot.
But they never talk about it.
No one talks about it.
Yeah. It's just, that's what it is. And it's so sneaky if we allow it. So here's the tool. You ready for the tool?
I'm ready.
This is going to change your world. So if you're listening going, that's my family, like they're overbearing or underbearing. Is that even a word?
I don't know.
Underbearing
and overbearing. It
whatever.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Or if you're going, yeah, the impact's there or whatever. Like, okay, what do we do? So one simple tool that you can do that we've done partially, I know with my dad's side we've done, but for lack of better terms, family mapping.
Yeah.
And so family mapping is using timelines, family trees to map out your family of origin. And you and your spouse together, you go through this to look at even cousins and second cousins, and you just talk and tell stories of how all these happen. You got divorce or blended families. For you and your spouse to do some family mapping, to really go through for one reason only. Is it to blame and point fingers,
no.
Jen?
No, absolutely not.
No. Why should we do that?
Not blame?
Yeah, why should we not blame? Or what should we be doing?
We want to dissect our family to understand what was going on at the time of the divorce, at the time of the just separation, at the time of the another child being born, like just to understand like what was going through their head, and basically survival.
Yeah.
Like I want to know that my parents did the best that they could for the conditions that they were in, like for the 80s and the 90s. Yeah. And does that make sense?
It's loving your spouse regardless of what has happened. But the biggest thing that we talk about all the time with couples is putting meaning to your story. Yeah. So you're going through dissecting, doing some family mapping, go through your family tree. It may be mundane, and you may be like, I don't ever want to do that. But I'm telling you, the power of breaking down what's going on and how your family of origin was formed, and even the good days, the bad days, the things you went through, the job loss, like really going through an entire timeline from the moment your parents were married or grandparents were married all the way to today. You get to see a full picture of the story. And if you can look back and see the full picture of the story, you have more grace. Yeah. You may not, it doesn't justify some stuff that may have happened. Right. You were like, well, let's just sweep that under the rug. No. That you talk about those things, but you have more grace because you're putting meaning to it. Here's an example, and I use this one with my dad. So my dad, I found out later, after he's been deceased for a while, that, he was drafted into the military. And then mapping out his time, I never knew this until just a few years ago. Mapping out his timeline and us talking about it, he went AWOL and was dishonorably discharged from the military. And then there's a blank in his timeline, and then he lived in Texas. So he was up in Indiana, and then he lived in Texas. And so if I look at what's going on in the world at the time, Vietnam was starting. It was right in the middle of the conflict. So he was drafted in it. And I'm thinking a 17, 18-year-old young man doesn't want to go to Vietnam because all he hears about is death and war and all these things. Doesn't justify his actions. But when he moved to Texas, I can put meaning to it. Like maybe he just wanted to start over.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't justify, doesn't make an excuse for it. But I have more grace for understanding. I remember being 17, 18. I was an idiot, dumb. And so all that to say, family mapping is an easy tool. We have resources I'll add to Empowered Homes. I'll add to this podcast. If you want more information about like what that looks like and how to do it, I've got outlines, I've got examples, I've got all of that, and you can find all that. And I hope, one of the greatest tools that we can have is really just communicating. I think all these sneaky threats, the thread of all this, just talking about
communication, for sure.
Because if we don't talk about it, it's just going to fester and get deeper and deeper and deeper. And we're going to look back going, how did we get there? How did we get this far? Because we didn't see it, we didn't address it, and we didn't set ourselves up for success. So when it comes to your family of origin, embrace the good, embrace the bad, continue putting meaning to both your stories, because God has put you together. We're together for a reason, for a purpose. We've got 3 amazing kids who years from now will be sitting around talking about their family of origin. And we have a choice now whether or not we want them to be in therapy because of all the stuff that we've done, and they may.
They probably will anyway.
Or they get to say, Mom and Dad, they loved each other and they did their best.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do.
Yes, at the end of the day, that's what I want them to know about us.
Yeah.
And they love Jesus.
Yeah, and they love Jesus. And Jesus is better.
Yeah.
And he's better than me. He's better than you. If we can give our kids Jesus and the gospel, it's better than anything we can give them ourselves. So the 3 sneaky threats: resentful support, assumed letdown, and family of origin. Anything else with sneaky threats, Jen?
Nope.
Thank you for being my guinea pig and listening to me rant and rave about these 3 things the last couple months.
It was fun. I like it in here.
Yep. You want to do more episodes?
Maybe lighter topics.
Like sex.
Bobby Cooley.
Why are you turning red again? No. If you're listening and you enjoy me make fun of my wife and make her turn red and sweaty, what is a topic you'd like for us to address? Let us know. Comment on YouTube or our podcast description. Make a note. Email us at podcast@empoweredhomes.org. If you want us to answer questions, we can do a Q&A.
Ooh.
Just from listeners. That would be crazy. You're like a celebrity now. So if you got anything you want us to address, I'll make Jen come do this again, but not unless you want to for a while.
Okay, thanks.
But that wraps up our Pursuing Your Spouse series. Tons of great episodes, tons of great content for us to really dive into our marriage, to look at the importance of what that pursuit means, whether or not you've been married for a month or you've been married for 40 years. You never stop pursuing your spouse in the middle of conflict, in the middle of honesty, in the middle of adjustments along the way. The key thing we always can and should do is pursue each other. So, Jen, love you.
I love you.
Thank you for being here again today.
It was fun.